Hello everyone, my name is Prem Vupaluri, and I would like to take the next 5 to 10 minutes of your time examining the state of driving today and in the post-pandemic era. There are some troubling indicators for traffic safety statistics as the world breaks out of the pandemic that I would like to go over with you. There are three critical points to be taken away from this presentation. Number one, please do not be fooled by the fact that traffic-related incidents decreased during the pandemic because the number of fatalities increased. The number one most likely cause of traffic-related deaths during the pandemic is increased speeds due to decreased congestion. And number three, please treat this as a potential future epidemic because remote work and online shopping are most likely here to stay, meaning traffic congestion is likely to remain reduced after the pandemic compared to pre-pandemic levels. On the previous key point slide, we saw that a key point of this presentation is that driving fatalities increased during the pandemic and yet overall traffic accidents decreased. There are some obvious potential causes for the changes that we're seeing. Day-to-day practices vary dramatically across the world due to COVID-19. Social distancing became a part of the common vernacular as people reduced the number of group activities that they engaged in. And finally, some countries mandated lockdowns and stay-at-home orders in order to curb disease spread. And companies in many industries initiated mandatory work-from-home protocols for their employees. These activities created a significant impact on driving behaviors, as we will see on the next slide. As you may be able to observe from the image on this slide, in 2019, an estimated 2.74 million people were injured in traffic accidents in the United States alone. This number decreased to 2.28 million in 2020. But on the other hand, 36,355 fatalities occurred in 2019 in the United States, which was a decreased number compared to what it was in 2020, 36,824. So the question has to be asked, what caused fatalities to increase when accidents decreased? On this next slide is a list of potential causes of the traffic incidents decreasing. During the pandemic, the decrease in traffic incident injuries could be attributed to a decrease in volume or density. This was observed in multiple studies, but the cause of this decrease could not be directly tied to a specific activity. For example, some literature studying post-pandemic traffic incidents pointed to stay-at-home orders resulting in some of the sharpest periods of traffic-related injury declines. Most of these studies showed that stay-at-home orders and lockdowns mandated by the government corresponded to reductions in crash frequency. These findings led me to believe that at least some of the causes of traffic incident decreases in 2020 could be attributed to the government-mandated responses that we have observed to this crisis. Now, moving on to the next slide, we can see and discuss behaviors impacting driving habits that are likely to continue once the world comes out of this pandemic. For example, there is abundant evidence that remote work is here to stay. And there's a much larger fraction of the employed workforce that is remote working compared to before the pandemic. Just remote work alone could potentially decrease the number of driving events per week by up to 10 if you consider twice a day for just commuting. In addition, teleshopping or online shopping may be here to stay as well. The volume of products purchased and delivered using online shopping exploded during the pandemic, and all of this online shopping activity resulted in decreased vehicular use as well. A significant fraction of this decrease in injuries from 2019 to 2020 could be explained by the consumer behaviors and remote worker vehicle use patterns, but please do not be fooled by the rosy picture that we have painted here thus far. On this next slide, we dig into why the traffic incident rate can be nothing more than a dangerous solution. If we focused on just the traffic incident rates, we could be cautiously optimistic about the state of driving in the post-pandemic society. The problem, of course, is that we are not seeing a corresponding decrease in the number of deaths due to traffic incidents. The central theme of this review was to understand what factors govern traffic incident rates, but this analysis would be incomplete if traffic death rates were not considered as well. The number of miles driven is decreasing, with a 13% decrease observed in travel miles, but the number of deaths due to motor vehicle accidents is increasing by 8% from 2019 to 2020. Now let us continue to pierce this illusion by examining some of the indicators of trouble that may appear down the road. The research into traffic death rates during the pandemic is particularly troubling because the increase in deaths has been attributed in some studies to increasingly risky driving behaviors. The number one risky behavior during quarantine, lockdown, and or stay-at-home orders was increased speed due to sharply reduced traffic congestion. Additionally, many drivers didn't wear seatbelts or chose to drive drunk. As you can see in this image, a person is killed every 13 minutes and injured every 7 seconds. Projected into the future based on the outlook of driving habits today, these statistics are likely to become worse, not get better. And this leads me to the take-home conclusion of my presentation. We cannot take the decreased traffic incident rate as a sign that the traffic safety picture will be rosy in the future. If traffic congestion remains reduced compared to pre-pandemic levels due to remote work or continued online shopping dominance, we as a community must pay attention to how we handle this reckless speed problem. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as the saying goes. So just as we applied mitigation strategies to the COVID-19 pandemic, it is high time that we apply mitigation strategies to this driving epidemic as well. Please let me know if you have any questions about my presentation.